If you look at the entrepreneur, he is the actual person who drives the economy to the next level. Financing is one of the biggest challenges that you can ever think about. The major thing for an entrepreneur is that at the beginning level, he wants to minimize the inventory cost, probably every kind of cost that we are being talking about. Definitely, entrepreneurship has got a very strong positive impact on the economy. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management in the 6th semester B.B.A, where we are going to learn about the meaning and definition of entrepreneur. So just moving further, let's first try to understand who is an entrepreneur. Now, an entrepreneur is a person who creates new business, takes the risk of creating something new and comes up with a whole lot of new ideas, new venture altogether, so that he is able to run the economy, give a moral boost to the economy. Now, every one of us in this world are entrepreneur by themselves. We have a lot of ideas that come across our mind. We have a lot of ventures, we have a lot of dreams that we want to seek. Every one of us wants to become a Bill Gates or a Jack Ma or a Mark Zuckerberg, or if not, at least an Elon Musk. Definitely, yes, we also want to be like them. But then, what really stops us from becoming that is the concept of taking risk. We are at the fear of taking risk. But an entrepreneur does not worry about the risk. He believes that by taking risk, he is going to enjoy the rewards of the risk. So the true entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk and who goes forward with his idea, and he is able to achieve success. That is the real entrepreneurship all about. So when you look here, he is commonly seen as an innovator, a source of new ideas, goods and services, business or procedures. So he is an innovator, a person who is born with innovative ideas, who has got the need, who has got the drive in terms of seeing something new. He believes that every time we need to do something new, we need to think out of the box, then only we will be able to succeed. So entrepreneurship is not just about studying the books, or not about acquiring degrees, or not about knowing some theoretical tools or some software. Entrepreneurship is all about guts and intuition. Entrepreneurship is all about getting the things done even before people could have even thought about it. So that is why entrepreneurship is definitely a dream destination for most of us. Moving further, let's try to understand the role of an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs play a key role in the economy, using the skills and initiate the necessary and anticipate the needs altogether. So now if you look at the entrepreneur, he is the actual person who drives the economy to the next level. If you look in India today, post 2015 onwards, the drive for entrepreneurship has been going up in rapid phases. The reason is that the government of India has believed that this is the right time where India should start emphasizing a lot on the startup ventures. This is the right time where the startups can take over and build India towards the modern economic growth. There was a time when India was only dependent on public sector companies or the traditional brick and mortar companies. But today, India has changed its outlook. India has become a modern country where there are n number of startups, there are new billionaires, new ideas, new apps, and new thought process that are coming out. So the role of entrepreneur is becoming very, very important. In fact, a pivotal role in terms of driving the economy to the next level. So when you look into the entrepreneur, he is a person who's actually been able to take the risk versus a reward function. I would like to literally dwell upon this for a moment here. Why? Because when I talk about risk and reward, there are two different concepts altogether when it comes to entrepreneurship. Why? Risk, according to us, is something that is an unforeseen factor. I do not know what will happen if I start a business. And that's a risk factor that comes at the top of our mind. Reward is something that is going to be the outcome of the risk that you have taken. So here, for an entrepreneur, there are two factors that he has to balance. He takes a risk because he believes that that risk is going to be the outcome towards that reward. The risk is the factor that is going to lead him to benefits. He believes that there are unforeseen challenges. He believes that there are multiple barricades that are going to come, but he also understands this factor very clearly, that overcoming those challenges, overcoming those barricades, you are going to see success. So in any way, nobody is going to stop me, or I am not going to get completely deterred by these kind of factors. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to see what are all the opportunities that are lying. Let me explore it and take it forward. Now, just giving an example here. Moment we start talking about Zomato today, a very, very classic and a simple example. All of us already know and understand the concept of taking the food away, or the parcel services altogether. This has not been something new. The only thing that changed, or the new factor that has come inside, is that getting your food delivered to your doorstep. So when the founders of Zomato took up this particular ideology of delivering food to the doorstep, that was one step ahead of our thinking. Nobody thought or believed, or rather could even imagine to that factor that can we deliver food door to door? Is it a viable idea? Will it be profitable? Will people accept? Will people ever think about that? Because all of us always used to think that having food inside the restaurant, in the restaurant, is what everybody likes, because that's where the hot food is served. But today, Zomato completely changed the adversity, changed the ideology altogether. Now the food is available at your doorstep. Whatever kind of food you want, in whatever type, style, whatever is that you want, will be delivered to you at your doorstep for a minimal delivery charge. Now what has happened is that that's exactly where the founders of the Zomato took in an effort. They took one step forward in terms of thinking. They said that, yes, why don't we take the food towards the customer rather than making the customer come towards the food? That is where the risk paid them. The risk got converted to reward, and today you see what Zomato and Swiggy are doing for you. Remaining everything is a history. So that's why I always say an entrepreneur is a person who does not fear about taking risk. He is only convinced by this factor that unless and until you take the risk, you move forward, you create something new, you will not survive. So definitely the role of entrepreneur is an innovator in terms of the economic growth. Moving further, the role of entrepreneur also comes from the concept of new business ventures. He creates a firm, aggregates the capital and labor in order to produce the goods and services. Now, the two important things that I would always like to emphasize for an entrepreneur is the word called as capital. Capital is very, very important. And the other word that he always looks for is labor. Now, these are the two important challenges that you can see for an entrepreneur. Where do I get the money, and where do I get the right kind of people to work for me? So the capital and labor is the two determining factors for any venture to become successful or unsuccessful. So even here, for that single entrepreneur, for that group of entrepreneurs, or those high profile entrepreneurs, the same question keeps on lingering in their mind. Even when the company has grown to a size, has become big, has become formidably of a size in terms of operation, the question of capital and labor keeps on ringing in their mind. For example, let's look at Flipkart. Flipkart is an Indian-grown e-commerce business which has been challenging Amazon. Definitely to be proud about the factor that Flipkart is India's own Amazon. They've really created a wonderful website, a wonderful range of products, a brilliant amount of discounts and offers and everything. And today Flipkart has expanded to a very great level as far as possible. But still, for Flipkart, the question of capital and labor, the question of rising funds, the question of getting the right people to do the right kind of job for them still remains in their mind. That's rather than using the word challenge, that would still remain as a question in their mind. Now, if that would be the case for a Flipkart, what would be the case for a person who would be just starting up a new company? For him also, the same question arises. But the degree, the variation is completely different. So that's why I would say here for an entrepreneurship, the challenge in terms of acquiring capital and labor continues for a long time. Followed by, because entrepreneurship is one of the most important thing of economic growth, we always believe that entrepreneurs are a high risk takers and they believe in that drive always. So these days what has happened is that government has understood the capital and labor issues and they have been trying to help the entrepreneurs to overcome this problem and drive it further. Moving further, let's try and talk about how the entrepreneurs work. How do they work exactly is managers have to shift their philosophy from treating everyone alike to recognizing differences and responding to those differences in the way that they ensure people that the employee retention and greater productivity is achieved. Now, let's try to understand for an entrepreneur, the most important thing is that how do you select people and how do you retain people and how do you grow them? Now, for example, when you are recruiting some 10 new people or persons for your organization, for an entrepreneur, the biggest challenge is to retain those 10. It is not just that you keep on hiring people for your organization and then one fine morning you go back and tell to the world, yes, my company is 100,000 strong or 1,000,000 strong. No, that is not what we are looking into. For an entrepreneur, the most important thing that we tend to look in, that we tend to understand here is that to grow with people on a continuous basis, try to understand, appreciate, and accept them as what they are. Now, moment you join an organization, if the organization tries to bend you too much, tries to completely modulate you too much, automatically there will be a resistance coming in. So for an entrepreneur, he needs to understand the shortcomings, the challenges of the people, appreciate them, analyze them, grow with them. Entrepreneur cannot be a boss just sitting on the top of the ladder and saying that work will get done. Entrepreneur is a person who works with the people. Entrepreneur is not a person who works above the people. So he has to be with the people. He has to join hands with them. He has to appreciate them. He has to understand what are all the likes and dislikes, what are all the areas of improvement, how we need to gather up with the people, how we need to organize the team, how we need to train them, and how we need to take them forward. So the role of entrepreneur is not just a simple managerial role, but it is more of a leadership role. It's more of a visionary role that you need to take so that you will be able to make this entrepreneurship journey even more successful. Moving forward, let's try to understand the common challenges that are being faced altogether. Now, one of the common challenges that are being faced is overcoming the bureaucracy, hiring talent, and obtaining finance. Of course, we have spoken about capital and labor. Let's also talk about this bureaucracy problem that is happening in entrepreneurship today. As we step out of our world of the public sectors, the normal companies, the jobs, the routines and everything, suddenly a day when you start thinking that I don't want to go to work anymore. I don't want to work under anyone. I want to have my own business. I want to have my own rules and regulations. I want to have my own definition about work. The first thing that starts coming in your mind is where to start, what to start, and how to start. You have been a part of a system which is being governed by rules and regulations, hierarchies, protocols, and nominations to be followed. But suddenly, you want to step out of that world. You want to think that going forward, I don't believe in bureaucracy. I don't believe in any kind of roles and regulations. I don't believe in any kind of roles and responsibility. I just believe that the work has to be done and automatically rewards will fall in place. So the biggest challenge for an entrepreneur is redefining this entire bureaucracy. He wants to go further and define an organization which is boundaryless, which is an organization that does not fear in terms of taking up responsibility, that does not fear for any kind of environmental pressures, that does not worry about any kind of forces that has been acting on him. So definitely an entrepreneur is a person who wants to see success by overcoming the red tapeism. He wants to have an organization where people work together and not work against each other. Second thing is that the hiring talent. Moment you go to websites like LinkedIn, Naukri or Monster.com and all those hiring websites, you are very, very fascinated by the word called as brand. Why? Because you want to work for those branded big MNC companies because they pay you well, they make you get a recognition in the society. So when I go ahead and I say that I work for IBM, I work for Google, I work for Yahoo, or I work for Microsoft, or I work for Tesla, these are all brands that you would like to recognize yourself with. But then, if I come and tell you about a name of a company which is not even registered in the minds of people, which is not even registered in the books of account, or which is not even registered in the stock exchanges, or not even probably known among hundreds and thousands of people, then people raise their eyebrows. They think whether this company is a right place to work. Can we join this company? What will happen to my future? What will be my career growth? So for an entrepreneur, the biggest challenge is to convince people and get the right people to work with him. Because once people join with them, they understand and they start putting that dedicated efforts towards a particular objective, towards a particular growth segment altogether, then automatically the company starts moving upwards. So that is why hiring talent becomes a very big challenge. Followed by obtaining finance. As we have already spoken about this, the capital issues altogether. Financing is one of the biggest challenges that you can ever think about. Today, when you talk about educational startups like Byju's, or when you talk about Vedantu, all these people, when they started up their journey as a small company trying to enter into the field of education, they had probably faced a lot of challenges. The reason is that they had the technology, they had the brain, they had the idea to visualize, but they never had the money to present it before people. They never had the power of finance by which they can acquire things for themselves. But today, yes, they have reached a particular level. Today, they have become leaders in their respective field altogether. The concept of finance is very, very important. Why? Because that is the key function, that is the key parameter that would make you understand that your dreams have been realized. So getting the right kind of funding, getting the right kind of finance from the banks or from the venture capitalists or from any other source will definitely matter for an entrepreneur. This is very, very important among us. Following which, the entrepreneur and the financing. Today, if you start looking into the financing entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things called as bootstrapping. There's a lot of factors which have come up where you can start getting money through banks, through venture capital, or you can start going to the MSME loans, the governmental schemes and norms, which have been helping the entrepreneurs to acquire that small-time finance so that they can start up early and they can start growing up. Now, the major thing for an entrepreneur is that at the beginning level, he wants to minimize the inventory cost, probably every kind of cost that we are being talking about. Why? Because he does not want to go to the level where at the initial levels itself the cost starts shooting up to a great extent. So what he would try to see is that borrow minimum capital, grow with it, and then start expanding to the next level of business. Now, the other thing is that while some entrepreneurs are lone players struggling to get their small businesses off the ground on a shoestring, while other partners armed with greater accesses and they get better resources. For example, when you start looking into those bigwigs in terms of industry who have the capacity to gather funds and start up another company, that's probably because they have the necessary contacts, they have the necessary people in place, and they can go and get the things done. So in that manner, in that access, yes, they are capable of doing things. And there what happens is that they are able to get finance at a better level, at a faster level altogether, and they are able to do things in the best way. So when you start looking into investors, hedge funds, crowdsourcing, or probably like bank loans, or when you start looking into private equity players, all these people are able to help you to reach better dreams, and they're able to help you to finance things faster, by which you will be able to start up the capital, start up the company, and go to the further leagues. Next one. Now let's try to understand the entrepreneurs and their impact on the economy. The first thing which I want you to understand here very, very clearly is the word called as uncertainty and the job market today. When you talk about uncertainty, especially during this pandemic time, please understand uncertainty is only a passing cloud. And this is a phase of your life. Every time you're not going to be uncertain, every time you're not going to be certain. So you keep changing the phases of life. While the uncertainty phase starts approaching you, you suddenly start feeling that things are going out of my control. I don't have anything in my hand. I'm completely down. I'm afraid. What am I going to do tomorrow? So at that point of time, you start seeking something new. You start seeking those areas which will give you an alternate source of fund. So moment this concept of entrepreneurship is being spoken about, definitely the two words that you need to concentrate is uncertainty and jobs. Why? Because an entrepreneur always feels that I don't want to stick to one particular job, doing the same kind of routine, doing the same kind of activity. I want to generate job for those millions of people in the economy so that they are able to use the right kind of knowledge, they are able to use the right kind of talent and grow further. The second thing is that with an entrepreneur, he knows that there are a lot of uncertainties remaining in the same job. One day you might be fired, one day the company might shut down. So why should we take the risk of sticking on to the same company? Rather, let me find out my own avenues. Let me start developing myself and contributing for the growth of the economy. So that is why we start looking into the entrepreneurial journey altogether. That's why we start looking into the stiff competition that has been created ahead, and we start moving towards the research and development of the entrepreneurship. This is why entrepreneurship will really contribute for the development of economy. It will be able to give us better jobs, better roles, more opportunities, and more avenues to grow. So definitely entrepreneurship has got a very strong positive impact on the economy. With this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the information that has been shared through this session would be of a great help and resource to you. In the upcoming sessions, we are going to talk about the different types of entrepreneurs, the kind of entrepreneurship that's happening in India. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this session.